This is just a simple line reference question. And it's difficult, though, in the sense that the lines themselves are very hard to understand. Now, one thing we need to make sure that we do here is we need to follow the +1 sentence rule. They tell us to read lines 14 and 15, but that's not going to be enough to understand what's going on. We need the context. We need to read a sentence before and a sentence after. And these are long sentences, so, don't cut corners. Do what you're told. The other thing here is that those lines are still hard to understand, so we're going to need to rely on the answer choices much more to understand what we're reading. So let's go in order here. Let's look at the question. The description of how Lady Carlotta put the doctrine of non-interference into practice serves to. Okay, go to the lines. We're trying to just get anything we can out of this. So what do we see? Certain of her acquaintances were wont to give her plentiful admonition as to the undesirability of interfering on behalf of distressed animals, such interference being none of her business. So look, they repeat the idea of interfering and none of her business. I understand that. So that's good. Only once had she put the doctrine of non-interference into practice, when one of its most eloquent exponents had been besieged for nearly 3 hours in a small and extremely uncomfortable May tree by an angry boar-pig, while Lady Carlotta, on the other side of the fence, had proceeded with the watercolor sketch she was engaged on, and refused to interfere between the boar and his prisoner. It is to be feared that she lost the friendship of the ultimately rescued lady. So, main ideas are repeated ideas. They're talking about interference a lot. So what does this have to do with anything? I don't really know. I don't understand this person, and the story is kind of weird. But let's let the answer choices focus us on the right stuff, okay? Choice A, foreshadow her capacity for deception. This is a super strong word. Deception, lying. Is this about lying? Did we see anything in here where she was lying? We talked a lot about interference, getting involved in other people's business, but deception is pretty strong, so that makes me nervous about this choice. I would really want there to be some word I could point to nearby that has something to do with lying or deception of some kind, so not a good sign. B, illustrate the subtle cruelty of her nature. Well, here's a problem, because you might think it's very cruel for this person to kind of, I guess, ignore her friend, is kind of what I'm getting from this story. But from an SAT perspective, cruelty is very strong, okay? Cruelty involves like torture and stuff like that. This seems to not be that extreme, so I'd be nervous about picking this. I'm not as sure it's wrong as I was for choice A, because I guess someone could construe it as cruel, but I don't know. I don't love it. Let's look at C. Provide a humorous insight into her character. Well, does it tell us about her character? Yes. Is it humorous? That's another strong word. Well, I barely understood it, so I wasn't laughing out loud, for sure. And to be honest, you're very rarely going to be actually laughing during your SAT. If you are, they'll probably kick you out. And nothing's really funny about an SAT. Even the passages at their funniest are still pretty boring. So we have to be careful with that word humorous. We have to be generous with it, I guess. And if you think about it, what's going on here? What else did we understand? Someone's in a tree, and there's a pig, and she's refusing to interfere, and there's a boar, again, the pig, and a person in the tree. So, I don't know, I'm not like a comic genius, but pigs attacking people seems kind of maybe funny. I don't know. Let's move on to D. Let's see. Explain a surprising change in her behavior. Well, it does talk about her being an interfering person. And then she's kind of, I guess, like taking the advice of her friends and deciding, I'm not going to interfere in this particular case. So there's a little bit of a change. That part I kind of agree with. But this word surprising is another strong word that we would need evidence of. And I don't see any evidence of it. I don't see anywhere where they talk about this being an unexpected thing. Okay? We might guess that it might be unexpected, but I don't know that I'm really qualified to do that because I don't really know Lady Carlotta. I've had 3 questions about her, and I've never read this book. I'm not supposed to have read this book and know anything. This is all supposed to just be here in the lines. So I'm really looking for something to point to for a lot of these words and these choices: cruelty, humorous, surprising, deception. And we want to pick the choice that I can most confidently point to something to justify it. And it's got to be the humor. It's not laugh out loud funny, but there's a pig attacking a person in a tree. That I can point to and say, okay, I could see this being funny. I don't read it funny, but if that was one of my friends and there was a pig attacking him in a tree, I'd probably be laughing. So I get it. And it's certainly easier to justify that than cruelty or surprise. And that ultimately is going to happen sometimes, where you don't love your answer, but because you can kind of justify it better than the others, you're going to just pick it. And that's what process of elimination is, right? As we get rid of bad things and we ultimately have to try to support our own answer as best we can. And in this case, it's maybe like I'm 75% sure, but in a lot of hard passages and hard questions, that's going to have to be good enough. So you have to be comfortable with a little bit of uncertainty as you move through. If you have more time at the end, you can always come back, but you don't want these early hard questions to slow you down too much, because then you'll lose points later on where the questions might be easier, but you just run out of time.